Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Family Sanctuary, a show that inspires living the gospel message in word and deed within our families. And now, Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn.
Welcome to the Family Sanctuary on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio. I'm your host for today's program, Peggy Hartshorn, Chair of the Board of Heartbeat International that advances life-affirming pregnancy help around the world. Well, today we have an inspiring story that I think will really be powerful and interesting for all of our listeners. It's about a mom and her family and her call into pro-life and how God actually provided every step along the way. It's interesting when you look back how you see that despite the challenges, what has obstacles put in what you think is the path ahead, that God is in it every step of the way. And so we have a lovely guest today, Andrea Trudden. Welcome, Andrea.
Hi, Peggy. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you with us. And Andrea and her husband, Dan, have been married 15 years, right? Mm-hmm. Have 3 beautiful children, Juliana, Angela, and Lucas. And they go to St. Paul's in Westerville. But I know Andrea because actually at Heartbeat International, she started out as my administrative assistant. And that was what,
2004.
2004. Wow. The time goes so fast.
It really does.
Before you were married, before we saw all the challenges that were going to be provided in your young life. That was your first job out of college, right?
Yeah. I had worked in radio, actually,
for
a few years throughout college for 3 years, and then also at the newspaper for Ohio State. But yeah, I graduated in June and started at Heartbeat in August.
Wow. So your first job, beautiful young lady, and started as my administrative assistant. Well, it's a long story. We'll hear some of it today. But at one point, you took a break to be home with your children, which I was a big fan of making sure that everyone knew who worked at Heartbeat that when God provides that beautiful family and that call, if you can, it's a wonderful opportunity, to be with your young children. I did that myself. I was so thankful that God provided that option for me too. Andrea came back and is now our Vice President of Communications. So I've been able to witness that how her life has unfolded as a beautiful pro-life young woman, but with some obstacles and challenges. But it was beautiful to see how God provided everything she needed. So she's going to be talking about that story today. So Andrea, your story involves not only marriage to a wonderful man, Dan, but then some challenges in your fertility along the way. Start telling us about that. How you ran into some physical difficulties, what God provided. Let's start the story there.
Yeah. So I did, Dan and I got married in August of 2007, and he's wonderful.
Yes, he is. I know Dan too. Not like Andrea, obviously, but a wonderful young man.
But we always knew that we wanted family, of course. That was probably talked about very early in our relationship because family values are very important to both of us. And so we knew that when we got married, we were set to start a family, had our home, and all the pieces were in place. And then, of course,
it seemed ideal.
It seemed ideal. Yeah. And then, of course, life happens and throws you curveballs. And so actually, with our first pregnancy, that did end in a miscarriage early on. And so, of course, you have all the different thoughts going through your head of, oh, no, is this going to be a constant? And discussions were had. And being in the pro-life movement, I've discussed with you, Peggy, it's one of those things that you know too much almost. And so I did know that 1 in 5 pregnancies unfortunately end in miscarriage. So it's like rationalizing all these different pieces. But we were very blessed to a couple months later become pregnant again. And so with that, all the excitement, once we got past the scary time, like we didn't tell anybody for several weeks that we were pregnant at that time, because in my experience, the worst part was untelling
Mm-hmm.
with a miscarriage. So we didn't tell anybody for a while.
And of course, when that happens, when a miscarriage occurs, I've heard the story so many times. Sadly, people usually say the wrong thing, don't they?
Yeah, it's all good intentions, and we totally understand. But it is you have a sense of failure in that moment because though there's literally nothing that you can do,
right? And it wasn't your fault in any way,
no.
obviously. Yeah,
and it does happen.
And sometimes people will say things like, well, you'll get pregnant again.
Right.
Yeah.
Which thankfully in our experience we did, but for so many, it helped me really understand the trials that some people go through and really that heartbreak that we know so many do endure over years with infertility.
And actually, some of the people that we've worked with at Heartbeat International, that's been their story. So that kind of pregnancy loss really demands a lot of empathy, from those around, and understanding the grief and the loss.
And it because of this work and the value that we see in every single life, and we devote our lives to protecting the unborn.
Right.
Those moments are hard, but I will say, throughout various people that I've worked with, when they've experienced miscarriage, either early on or later, or anything like this, the surrounding of love that comes and the prayers over you, it's just amazing to witness because you do feel that it is a loss for you, and those in the movement understand it.
Yes, when you're surrounded by people like you have been at Heartbeat International, generally speaking, that's something that we provide a lot of support. We understand the strong bonding that occurs between mother and child, even very early in the pregnancy.
I was going to say, and it was so immediate too, and hearing the prayers for the baby. That was unexpected for me.
At first,
but very, very much appreciated. I don't like to cry in front of people, but I broke down a lot in those moments.
So that allowed
tenderness.
you to really grieve and recognize that your baby is with the Lord. So, but you were able to get pregnant.
We were able to get pregnant and had an amazing doctor walk with us through the pregnancy, and then at our 20-week appointment where we weren't going to find out if it was a boy or a girl. We were going to be surprised. And we went in, it was early. So the doctor was very quiet, and we just figured, he's not a morning person. So we're looking at the ultrasound and hearing the heartbeat and everything. And then he turns to us and he says, okay, so here's the picture of the ultrasound, and showing didn't say it was a girl at that point. Here's the baby's head, arms, everything. Here's the stomach. And it was up in the chest cavity where the heart is. And I remember we were just kind of staring at it like, okay, maybe that's normal. And he said, that's not where that's supposed to be. So then we didn't know what to think. And he informed us that it is a diaphragmatic hernia. So our baby had a hole in her diaphragm, and her abdominal organs slipped up through that hole into her chest cavity, hindering the growth of the lungs and shifting the heart. So I remember him very specifically. It's Dr. Parker, amazing OBGYN. And he just looked and he just said, it's okay, you can cry. And it was like I needed that permission because, again, didn't know if it was first time I was 20 weeks pregnant, didn't know if this was normal, and your parts go back down. But he was amazing. He was talking to us. He did ask, he's like, do you want to find out the sex of the baby now that you know this? And we went back and forth, and then we said yes. And so we found out it was a girl, which we learned that through multiple appointments. Apparently that is a very good thing.
With this particular birth defect.
No, with all birth defects. Apparently there's something that's referred to as the wimpy white boy syndrome.
Isn't that
girls
something?
Are fighters. And every doctor and nurse that we talked to throughout the rest of this process would say, oh, good, it's a girl.
That's interesting.
It was fascinating to learn. But I guess they have been known to be more fighters at birth. So we immediately got scheduled for fetal specialist appointments. Every test that I didn't know existed, we went through, I think, where I literally had to go down to Children's Hospital to have an MRI on the baby and then an echocardiogram on the baby. And so it's very
Not
fascinating.
just for you, but for the baby. Yeah,
yes.
right.
And so fascinating to find out just everything that they're able to discover and walk through and prepare us. And that was amazing because we did, through all of the testing phase period, we kind of shut down a little bit because of course we're in like stat mode. Like, what are her chances of survival? What do we need to do? How long will we be at the hospital? What are the proper protocols and everything? And we met with an amazing neonatal coordinator, Becky, and she walked us through the entire process as to what we would expect. We did a tour of the NICU. We met with the neonatal surgeons. It was very good for us as parents to be prepared for that. And along the way, just the number of prayers that we were given. We met with the priest and pastors down at Children. So we knew we had support there. We knew we had support at our work and at our church. And it was just a time of pause in many ways.
You're
And
kind
prayer.
of stunned.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So, but it sounds like they were telling you from the beginning that the baby will be a fighter, probably, and she will make it through the gestational stage, right?
Yes, and the goal was to actually get her as far along in the pregnancy as possible because your lungs actually don't start to develop until about 37, 38 weeks.
Really? Wow.
And so
her lungs were so squeezed and pushed at this time, but they weren't at the stage of needing more space yet.
correct.
Right.
Because
Okay.
and we were told that she more than likely wouldn't cry at birth. It's the most common of the rare birth defects. So it's 1 in 2,300 people will experience this. So the doctors, while it's not a common surgery that they do often, they are skilled in it,
Okay.
especially here in Columbus. And so we made the plan, and they were able to make us aware of what to expect. Like, we knew that she had a 60 to 90% chance of not surviving, depending upon how severe it was. She probably wouldn't cry at birth because of no lungs.
60 to 90% of not surviving. That's a pretty high percentage.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
Wow.
and you would appreciate this, Peggy, because you know me, but like as we were making lists of names, I had a spreadsheet, and so we were looking through like what all the meanings of all the names meant. And Juliana is our daughter's name, and it means soft but strong.
Wow.
And so, Chris,
You gave her the name before she was born.
we had it narrowed down, but we pretty much knew that one was going to be her name at that point. And so fast forward to, we were about 37, 38 weeks and had a C-section. There were so many doctors in the room. Only about 1 or 2 of them were for me. 13 of them were for her, which was
Juliana.
great.
Wow.
And she cried at birth.
Oh, wow. That
And-
shows her lungs were developing.
Yeah. And they definitely, like, she cried. They got her on a respirator right away. We got to see her for 11 minutes.
Oh.
And then they took her to a different hospital.
Let me just ask you, because, again, because of the work we do at Heartbeat International, we know that there are so many wonderful, what are called perinatal hospice programs, where they prepare families in cases of very severe birth defects, where they're pretty sure the baby may not live more than a few hours. And yet that can be such a beautiful time with the family.
Right.
Usually they can prepare the family, the children come in, other children, the father, of course, the mother, they can hold that baby. They take pictures, they take footprints. Because of the possibility of 60 to 90% that she wouldn't survive, did they prepare you at all for that?
So not in those terms.
Okay.
But what was incredible was they had a photographer in that room.
Mm-hmm.
We got her footprints. We got everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they put together a wonderful piece for us to have.
Oh, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And so perinatal hospice, those terms,
Weren't
I
used.
definitely learned it later, more
see.
so in
Mm-hmm.
our work. But it wasn't used there. And I think being surrounded by doctors that we knew were fighting for her
Mm-hmm.
and were advocating for her, like we knew that
There still was a good chance.
Yes. We were told to expect to be in the hospital from 6 weeks to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it depended upon everything, of course. So she didn't end up having her surgery, which was a repair, where they would do an incision, pull down her organs, her liver, her spleen, her small intestines, and stomach.
Small intestines. I'm thinking how tiny all these little organs are at
so
that
tiny.
point. Aw.
And then put a patch inside of her. And
At the
sew her
diaphragm.
up. Yes, at her diaphragm. And throughout this process, she definitely had some struggles. She had some nights where her blood pressure was very erratic. One night it was literally going from like 60 to 180 within a couple minutes. And it was a malfunction of a machine that
Oh, good. Yeah.
good, but very
Pretty scary at the time. Yes, of course.
But again, surrounded by amazing nurses and doctors who were there for her, and very, very loving people.
Wonderful. Let me just, before we continue
Yes.
your story, Andrea, just reintroduce you if someone has just come into the program. Our guest today is Andrea Trudden, who actually is the Vice President of Communications for Heartbeat International. We're talking about her beautiful story of how God not only prepared her and her husband along the way, provided all the support and help they needed with their miscarriages, with their first child, Juliana, who had a very rare but serious birth defect, and how he's provided all along the way, continuing with the kind of support she needs, and also preparing her for her leadership role, actually now internationally in the pro-life movement, to really empathize so much with mothers and families that are facing these kinds of challenges in pregnancy. So it's a beautiful story. Thank you for being with us, Andrea.
Oh, thank you. And I think it is a reminder, too, of how important it is to be surrounded by that support, because had I had a different doctor, I could have very easily gotten a different opinion,
Yes.
for me, a suggestion for a peaceful way to work with the
Resolve
problem.
this pregnancy.
Yes. And
Yes.
it was never in question, which is wonderful, because we know that we sought out pro-life doctors,
Right.
and it was actually marked kind of in the thing, like, don't even bring it up.
Don't even bring up
Don't
abortion.
even bring up
Right,
abortion.
right.
That is not an option for this.
Right. That's wonderful. I think you told me that you actually started with a pro-life doctor because you had cysts early on, right?
Yes.
And they didn't want to give you a pro-life treatment.
It was unfortunate. It kind of completely ignored my request, which was very sad, but I swiftly took care of that, because one of the solutions, of course, is to be put on chemical birth control. And it made me, not me, it completely changed me. I was having hot flashes. I was very irritable, it was odd.
This was
feeling.
supposedly the medical treatment. Yes.
So I asked to not be on that, and they just gave me a different form of chemical birth control. And so I was like, okay, I want to find out why I'm having these issues and fix it rather than just make it go away.
Well, thank goodness we have such wonderful pro-life physicians who, despite challenges to their own philosophy in the medical profession, unfortunately today, step forward. And so you were seeking out pro-life care right from the beginning, even before you got pregnant.
Correct.
Yeah,
and they
absolutely.
were wonderful to actually then connect me with pro-life pediatricians as well, who were huge advocates as well. So after the surgery, we got out
After Juliana's
surgery, yes, she was able to thrive and out of the hospital in 5 weeks. So before they even thought that they could, prepared us to have her out. And so we got to bring her home at 5 weeks. And she is 14 now. She has a couple long-term issues such as asthma, but overall, this is part of her story. And she is such a fighter. And actually was told yesterday, at a sports event that we can see she's a competitor, isn't she? So it's like she looks all kind and gentile,
Gentle, yeah.
gentle, but yeah, she totally is a fighter.
Wow. Well, it's just a beautiful story. And then didn't you tell me that this birth defect that's so rare actually can occur again?
Yes.
In pregnancy.
So after the first time, if you are diagnosed with a congenital diaphragmatic hernia, your chances go from 1 in 2,300 to 1 in 50.
1 in 50. So knowing that you still were open to new life and have 2 beautiful children.
Yes.
In addition to Juliana.
Yeah, it definitely comes into a fear factor moment at the beginning of the pregnancies because until that 20-week appointment, we were always a little hesitant or not hesitant, just nervous but we were prepared.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, if this happens again, we know that we can fight through it. And yeah, my other 2 children are completely healthy. Angela was actually very good. Stayed in. She was a 10-pound baby.
Oh, wow.
And then Lucas is just a doll as well. So very healthy, happy, good kids.
Yay, God.
Very much so.
I wanted to go back to one little detail that I happen to know, of course, because you were working at Heartbeat International at this point, that one of our other employees at the very same time had a very difficult also child with severe birth defects. And your 2 babies were in the NICU at Children at the same time. So you too, obviously, and her husband and your husband, God provided that support for both of you together in the NICU.
It was nice in a way because not only had we been prepared through the doctors, but we did know our friends who were there too, and we would see them in the cafeteria. But we were definitely there at the same time dealing with very different but very similar situations.
Yeah.
And it was interesting from the different perspectives as to how we were engaging with the doctors and such because we got out sooner, which was good, but then knowing that
they were
our friend was going to be there for a little bit longer.
That was difficult.
And watching the different families in there and what they were enduring, it definitely gives you a completely different perspective because your whole world is on hold. And I mean, we were at the hospital morning to midnight every day. And you're seeing the different families coming in.
Your heart goes out to them.
Oh, incredibly.
And one of the things you shared with me that was so interesting, while you had doctors that were totally supportive of every way possible, making sure that Juliana had the very best chance of survival, and same with the baby of our other friend who was there at the same time, there were doctors who were not of that mindset.
Yeah, it was fascinating hearing during rounds, those who would talk. There was one encounter in particular where they were talking about the different difficulties that the kids were dealing with, these tiny babies. And one of the residents made a comment about, sometimes I think we save too many. Yeah. And it was heartbreaking to hear, knowing what we just endured. And it's like, no, we would continue to fight for our babies. You give us every tool in that toolbox because every life matters. Every single baby that was in there deserved to have that fighting chance, that it was not a question for us. And the fact that some people would even think to say that in a children's hospital is very disturbing, in my opinion, but also that they think that they're being kind.
Yes.
And it is a very different perspective as to what compassion can look like in people's minds, because they were thinking that was a compassionate move.
And think of the parents who, of course, would be so influenced by that. If the doctor says, well, this is a child that really would be very difficult, or paints a bleak picture like that. So many parents, of course, wouldn't, like you, be fighting for their child either. They would think, well, this is the best thing medically.
And that's where it is important to very much so speak up and be an advocate for your baby at the onset. And it is important to know who you are working with as a doctor.
Yeah. And of course, an advocate for any patient in the hospital, because there are those different perspectives for patients of all ages,
Exactly.
particularly the elderly in the hospital. Well, Andrea, just real quickly, we're almost out of time, but I wanted you to share just real briefly how your husband, Dan, of course, responded to all this. He had not fully converted to the Catholic faith, although he was very interested in Catholicism when you got married. And then he was in RCIA. So how did this all affect him in terms of his faith?
Yeah. So he became more and more, not even just open, because he had been open to God. He just hadn't been involved growing up. And this whole experience completely shifted that. And so he automatically, when we found out about Juliana's condition, I believe that was when we got enrolled in RCIA for him. And we'd been going to St. Elizabeth's in Westerville for months. And so that was one of the families that literally wrapped around us, was that RCIA family throughout all of this, because they were following the journey and just speaking hope and life into us so much. We have good friends still who watched us throughout this entire part. And then when Juliana was born and safe to go out, like, we would bring her to some of the RCIA meetings and I'd just sit in the back with her. Because they were such a good influence, and they answered our questions. They really helped create a strong connection to the church.
And Dan's conversion was complete.
Exactly. And ever since, they've been stuck with us.
Well, Andrea, I wish we could continue talking, because there's so many beautiful aspects to your story, and your story continuing. So, but unfortunately, we're out of time. But thank you so much for being with us today to tell such a beautiful pro-life story. So our guest has been Andrea Trudden, and Vice President of Communications for Heartbeat International. And so you've been listening to her story on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio on the Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn, with archives at stgabrielradio.com and streaming live on stgabrielradio.com. Our program, The Family Sanctuary, is broadcast at 4 every Saturday and 2 on Sunday. So please join us again to strengthen our families and make them sanctuaries of life as God intends.
Family Sanctuary is a production of listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, AM 820. Archives of Family Sanctuary with Peggy Hartshorn are available at stgabrielradio.com.